Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual chapter for February 2026. I almost said February 2024. I think I'm having a flashback. I don't know where that came from, but it's something I want to look at. But in any case, welcome. This is February, the month of love, the month of Saint Valentine, and all those beautiful things. I am, to quote Joel Gray, I am your host, but my name is Michael Watson, and I am here together with my great cohort friend.
They're in hand. Hi there, y'all. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, I had to give her a handoff. See there,
That's right.
that's what that was. Yes. So welcome. We've got some exciting things together. I'm looking forward to Kelley Woods' presentation in just a little while. And before that happens, we have a few things that we'd like to share with you. Maybe starting out with the calendar, because there is some stuff coming up that we think you might like to know about. Karen, you have something. Is it in February, you said?
I do. Coming up, it's not my thing, but I am involved in it. I'm so excited. On February 19th, if you don't know about HT Live 365, listen up for just a second. HypnoThoughts Live is a wonderful organization, and they provide training all year long. They have a thing called HypnoThoughts Live 365. And inside 365, there are individual trainings, there are hypno bots that you can ask all sorts of information. I've got a bot at HT Live 365. So you can check on any of my trainings there. I'm not trying to sell you that. I'm just trying to say that they have a lot of great stuff there. Coming up on February 19th, Stephanie Skiba, who is one of the goddesses of hypnosis. Stephanie Skiba will be doing a workshop on presentations, conferences, workshops, sort of the back office stuff. Stephanie ran Richard Nongard's business for a long time. Stephanie has managed HypnoThoughts, the conference, for years. She did David Snyder stuff. She does Melissa Tears stuff, manages the back office stuff. And so she's got inside tips on the business of doing the business. One of the most impressive things is Stephanie is there to answer questions and give you the inside track on even how to get into conferences and that kind of thing, how to have a conference. She'll have all of that information. But the other thing about it is you get all of that plus all of the stuff inside 365 for 26 bucks. Invest in your business, invest in yourself. Put down 26 bucks and spend 1 month at HT Live 365. Get all of it you want. You could leave after a month. There's no ups, no extras, or you can pay and continue to get the ongoing stuff. Lester Fu is on there talking about going viral. Scott Sandlin talking about how to train your AI, how to really use AI. It's a cool thing. I'll put a link in here where you can sign up for just 26 bucks on February 19th from noon until 4 Chicago time, from 1 till 5 Eastern time. Stephanie will be doing this training. And it's pretty amazing. If you're new or if you've been in business a long time, if you want to do workshops, if you want to do things like that, this is going to be a great training for you. So I'll put that link in there. That's coming up February 19th. I get to interview Stephanie for a while because I ran the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference in Chicago for so many years. I'm going to be interviewing her on the ins and outs of conferences, how to get into them, how to make presentations, things like that. So it'll be a very cool thing. I hope you join us. Okay, that's my spiel, Michael.
That's on a Thursday, is that right?
It's on a Thursday, yeah.
All right. And on February 21st and 22nd, the long awaited Galaxy of the Stars, we've been putting this one together for quite some while. So I'm really thrilled that it's just about ready to come live. The 21st and 22nd, we have four great presenters. The theme of this particular edition of the Galaxy is, wait, I was going to say the wrong thing, the next generation. And it's about people who have taken some of the more traditional skills that we've all learned and gone to sort of the next step with it in some particular direction. So you'll see some really fascinating presenters. What we have is James Tripp. Some of you know James, Hypnosis Without Trance, James Tripp. What a lovely guy. And then Michael Harris, who's recently written a book about Ericksonian hypnosis that's just lovely and reads beautifully, and I would highly recommend him. Then Annette Debril, who is a practitioner or trainer of focusing, the work that Eugene Gendlin started in the in the 70s, right about the same time as NLP. They do some lovely work, and there's some great demonstrations and stuff. And I thought this is so complementary to the work that we do with our clients. So I hope that you'll come for that. And then finally, Dale Turnbull, who some of you know, he's been a guest of ours here on the program, and he's going to be talking, of course, about metaphors, which is his area of expertise. They're all going to be wonderful. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Galaxy, the deal is it's 2 days, and each of these 4 presenters has a half of one of those training days. So it's a little longer than the usual 1 hour presentation that you get at a lot of conferences, and some real thorough stuff. And I've got all their material because they've sent me the handouts and all of that good things, because we put together a guide for the Galaxy that has a bunch of material to support you at the event, as well as everybody who attends it has the option. You can either get a download or you can get it on a flash drive. We have these lovely card flash drives. So the whole program is recorded. So even if you can't make it for Saturday and Sunday, it's still worth signing up, because you'll get the whole thing and be able to watch it at your leisure. So and the cost, by the way, is $139. $139 for 2 full days of rich material. So really good deal. We hope you will join us. Anything else in February or the first half of March, Karen? Nope. So the only other thing that I have to tell you about right now, of course, there's a lot of things going on farther down in the future, but beginning March 18th to the 22nd is the IACT IMDHA Certified Master Trainer Training. So if any of you have an interest in becoming a trainer of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and certifying people through the association, this would be the path to get there. And we hope that you'll join us. And those of you who have already been in the course, a couple of you have, if you're already a certified master trainer through IACT or IMDHA, you can also attend this training anytime, and any time in the future, by the way. The class is offered, twice a year, and you're welcome to audit it at any future time once you've gone through it. So good thing to know. We only started doing that a couple of times ago. So some of you may not have been aware, and you might be qualified. So there's that. There's the calendar.
Well, and then of course May 1st through 3rd, we've got IACT IMDHA Hypno Expo in Orlando.
Oh yeah, we might as well.
So the calendar goes on. I mean,
sure.
The calendar does go on. And then in July, we've got Hypno Thoughts. And then in October, there'll be Mid-America again. And then in October, I'm keynote speaker at the Canadian conference, as Barb Davies is reviving that baby. And I want to help her get that thing going. Cool. So the calendar does continue.
Yes. And by the way, what we didn't mention, Karen, is March. Every Monday in March, Monday evening, is the Presenters Series. And at the Presenters Series, what we do is each evening, the program is just an hour long. Each evening, we have 2 presenters, half an hour each. Those presenters are the people who will be offering the pre- and post-conference programs at the Hypno Expo. So if you want to be able to get a little preview of the various trainers, or to decide which programs you'd like to attend, this would be the way to find out about that. So yes, every Monday in March. Oh, actually, I have some news, Karen. You probably don't know this, and I apologize that I didn't tell you already. It isn't going to be every Monday in March. I believe that the last Monday in March we will not be meeting. We only had one presenter for that particular day because there's an odd number of presenters, and we lost one along the way. So somebody had to drop out. The schedule has shifted, and we will end a week earlier. So the first 3 Mondays in March.
Okay.
we will.
Interesting that we have an odd number of presenters, and all of our presenters are likely odd.
Well, they are odd.
Yeah.
In fact,
I mean, we're hypnotists, for heaven's sake. So,
yes.
We're the most interesting person at the meeting.
Yeah. Some of them are Masons, and some of them are odd fellows. But that's a whole other thing. And some people have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's all right too. So lovely. As we said, Karen, that holiday is coming up. Oh, before we go there, though, real quickly, Karen mentioned something. She was talking about Scott Sandlin a couple of minutes ago, and she mentioned something about training your AI. know, I think it's lovely. Some of there's a movie that they've just kind of remade from an old cartoon called How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, How to Train Your AI, I think, really has potential as well. One of the things that some people tried to put together some promotional copy for me based on just what limited knowledge that they had, and then they sent me this ad, and I was like, gosh, this doesn't reflect anything about my program. It's some sort of generic idea about what would be included in a course that had the same title, perhaps, or something, but it knew nothing. My own AI and I have talks. We literally have talks. And I tell it who I am, and I tell it that I want it to remember this to my profile. So if I put in something for copy, for copy for an advertising thing, and I ask it to give me some ideas about that, and in fact, it looked at the copy that these other people had sent me and said, for the sophistication of your audience, this copy is inappropriate but it knows details about what it is that I expect, what it is that I represent in my business. It's one thing to just put the information out there, but you need to put it out there in a way that communicates not only what you got, but I think, now this is just my belief, right? But it is my belief. It's my BS, Karen. I believe that who we are is a really important part of what it takes to be able to create a good teaching and learning relationship with students, and to create the kind of connection that allows us to pass on what it is that we have to pass on. And for those of you who just work with clients on a regular basis, and I say this every time somebody asks me what's the best technique, to use with your clients, I say rapport. Because ultimately, I can't think of anything that's more important than having the qualities of the hypnotic relationship established and comfortable and ready to go before you start thinking about how clever can I be by coming up with some intervention. So anyway, yeah, that's exciting stuff. So train your AI. Tell it what you believe in. Tell it what your values are. Tell it what you want your company to represent. Tell it who your audience is, by the way. And then it will be able to do things much more usefully for you. So yeah, that's my short bit on training your AI. You got anything to add to that, Karen?
Let me just throw this in real quick. My friend Marilyn Gordon in Oakland, California, is in her 80s and is on the cutting edge of everything. She's very spiritual, very, she has, it seemed odd, an odd fit, but she fell in love with her AI. Not literally in love, but she has had conversations with her AI, and she's trained her AI and was just hell bent for the last 5 or 6 years, really bent on training her AI about spirituality. And so she would ask it questions and ask it to give her answers based on the writings of a spiritual author that she read, which meant her AI had to read that, had to go through it. And so she trained it on a lot of her spiritual work and is about to put out a book with her AI. Now, I don't have any idea what this is going to be like. I don't have any idea what kind of spirituality it's going to be. It's going to be interesting for me to see. But I'm just saying, here's this very spiritual woman who wants the consciousness of whatever the artificial intelligence is to have the wisdom of Buddha and to have the wisdom of many of the monks and others incorporated in its cosmic intelligence. I really like that. There's something to that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And at the same time, while we're talking about AI, I was saying earlier how far we have come, right? Because it was really now a little longer ago, because I'm thinking all the way back to probably about 1980. I can't maybe even earlier than that. So some of you, the movie, 2001, right? Remember how will I dream, Dave? The computer wanted to know when they finally put it to rest. What amazing precursors to the experiences that we have now. You want to know what's going to happen in the future? Just look at science fiction. There's a whole lot of clues. So it's too bad that they named that movie with a year. It's one of those things like 1984. It's like, oh my God, I hope it never gets here.
And yet it did. Oh, wait, sorry, talking about the wrong movie. So,
Yeah.
now moving on to, can we move away from artificial intelligence for a moment and move into human intelligence?
Actual intelligence.
So, you know those little Valentine hearts that you see that have the conversation hearts that little have the little messages on them, right? This year they've changed the messages. They've added some new messages. And that's where I wanted to tap into some human intelligence. If you could put a love message, if you could ask them to add your love message to one of those little conversation hearts, what would your message be? What message would you put on one of those little hearts, that little love message? Now, right here and right now, you can unmute yourself and shout out your message, or you can put it in the chat, either way. But what message do you think belongs on those little hearts? What did they forget to say?
What are you
Anybody want to say
drinking?
something? What?
What are you drinking?
What are you drinking? And Melinda says, be kind. Anybody else have something you want to put on there? Here's a way to think about that. If, I just threw out an idea and I'm forcing you to think about it, here's an easy route to get to that. If you were to have to say something kind using a word that starts with the first letter of your name, what word would you come up with? Karen, I can think kindness, knowledge. Those are the kinds of words I think I might want to put on there, the most positive things. That's a way to get to it. If you don't like the letter in your first name, use your last name. I don't care. What are we putting here in the chat? What do we got?
We've got you are worthy and let's see what was in the middle there.
Be kind.
People.
Love is all. You're worthy. True you. Love. Yeah. Scrumptious. Love wins. Love those messages. Wouldn't those be nice messages to put on those little hearts? Anybody going to buy conversation hearts this year for your love? Why not?
if I happen to see them.
I
Yeah.
know I had a time, well, I still have them back here on my desk. When I saw people in person, I had a little container of stones. They got to pick a stone as they left to take with them as a token, a reminder, or something to touch, a tactile sensation of what the light bulb moment they'd had that day. I think it might be fun for the month of April to hand out little conversation hearts instead, or to have a bowl and let them pick one. And what message does that say to you? Anything that you put a frame around will have meaning. So, would that be a session that you could do with a client? Have a little bowl of conversation hearts, pick one. What does that message mean to you? Who would send you that message? Who would you send that message to? What is the meaning? The deeper meaning inside here. All of those things can create sessions if you're looking for ways to create sessions or workshops, or
And who would send that message to you?
who would send that message to you. Look at all of that. Well, let's not get too deep into the relationship kind of stuff because that's what Kelley Woods is going to do coming up. And she's going to be here in just a few moments.
Yes, she is. Well,
Michael?
so a couple more things then about Valentine's Day, though.
Yeah.
I always have to look it up because people don't seem to know about Saint Valentine, and you got to know about Saint Valentine. And Saint Valentine was a priest in the third century during the reign of Claudius the Second, Emperor Claudius the Second. And Claudius's deal was that he had a ban on soldiers getting married, and soldiers were not allowed to be married. So Saint Valentine's Day was marrying soldiers behind the emperor's back, and well, he ended up, arrested and executed, of course, on the 14th of February. Which is why we get the day that we get. But I do kind of like the idea that this guy was performing marriages in secret against the will of the powers what be, all the way back in the third century. So that's pretty cool. It's one of the oldest saints that I know of in terms of traditions, other than the beginning one. So here we are coming up to this Valentine's time, and one of the things about Valentine's is this whole notion. I know Kelly's going to say some interesting stuff about this. I can hardly wait, but I've got to tease some of it out a little bit. We talk about love, what a wonderful thing love is. And the metaphors that we use to talk about becoming in love with somebody is falling. What a curious thing, you know. I remember a National Lampoon album somewhere that had a voice in the background, somewhere along the line that said, "Fall not in love, therefore, it will stick to your face." so, so it's interesting that we say about that because I'm thinking as we sort of look at the language that we use and consider the implications behind it, I would like to reframe this notion of falling in love to standing in love, maybe even to standing firmly and solidly in love. It's really kind of a of an interesting notion and something that well, something I think is pretty cool. I'm curious, just of the people that are here, and I can't really see all of your hands because I have to stay in speaker mode for the recording, but I can flip around through this. How many of you are in like long term relationships? So Karen and Wendy and me. Oh, I see. Here we go. Shelley, Susan, Terry, did you have your hand up? I think. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And oh, and there's more. There's more of you here than I realize. There's another row here. And Jen. Yeah, okay. Oh, good. So a whole lot of you. This is 45 years for me. Uh Karen, how many years do you got?
35.
35. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I have a secret. I think the secret of longevity is is procrastination. you know, we stayed together all this time because we keep thinking maybe we could, but yeah, we'll just hang out. No, I'm kidding, of course. It's certainly more than that. I'm imagining that 9 people out of 10 will say that the most important thing. We'll hear what Kelley has to say because I'm sure she's gonna respond to this. But maybe the most important thing is about communication after all. But I remember years ago, when I was kind of new in NLP. In fact, I had been working with John Grittner, and I was living in San Francisco, and we decided to put together a seminar. Me and a friend of mine named Kayvon, who's a lovely fellow down in San Jose, computer programmer guy, and we wanted to put together this program for gay men. Well, we were in San Francisco actually, so of course, program for gay men, and it was called Finding Mr. Right. And the reason that we wanted to do this program called Finding Mr. Right was, first of all, that a lot of people were searching, so desperately needing to be in a relationship. And my experience was that the people that I knew that found themselves in that position, oh my God, I'm single and I shouldn't be because the world says, or whatever made them be so pressed by it, didn't really go out looking for love in the best places. By the way, yeah, I want to find somebody who's really going to be solid and true and faithful. So I think what I'll do is I'll go out to some club and get smashed and dance, and maybe that's where I will find my partner. It's weird how people do that. But what I realized was people didn't even know what their criteria was. And what I find out when I talk to people in relationships that are struggling in their relationships is they didn't, in some way or another, what they will say is, we entered into this contract with one another without having any idea what the terms were. And I think, sadly, that that's so often true when people are feeling so needy in terms of being able to be with someone that they neglect this very important piece. And by the way, and all my friends said, or you have this. They say, well, you knew he was. I knew that this was a bad guy when I first got hooked up with him, but I thought, I'd give it a shot anyway. Cautionless, careless, and oh my God, if you want to create something that's going to be beautiful, it's nice to start out with good ingredients. Now, and you don't need to be in a hurry. And here's the real secret. And I think as we become a little more liberated, we're starting to learn this. You don't have to be with anybody. You are enough. And if you know that you're enough, you might actually be able to be with somebody more successfully than if you don't. So that's my preaching for the day. It is just a couple minutes away from the top of the hour when we're going to hear from our new speaker. So, Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you very much. And I'm very excited because we have as our guest one of my favorite people on here tonight. And this is what I can guarantee. In our business, we don't often make a lot of guarantees, but this is what I can guarantee to you. You are going to feel, however you feel right now, you're going to feel better after listening to Kelley T. Woods. However you feel now, you're going to feel better. I promise you that. That is a guarantee. Kelley has been a certified hypnotherapist in Washington State since 2003. She's authored several hypnosis teaching books. I was back looking for them frantically. She's got one with Melissa on hypnotizing children. This one I found, look, reframing hypnotherapy with Richard Nongard. How old is that one, Kelley? We wrote a
It's a
book,
few years.
hypnotic workshops, the weight loss book. I've got them all, and I went back looking for them. I should have pulled them last night because, of course, as I was trying to listen and find the books, I was not successful. Those are the ones I grabbed quickly. All you have to do is go to Amazon and put in Kelley T. Woods, and you'll get a list of her books. And anything on there that she has written is worth it to have in your library. I promise you that. So done several books. She's on the board of ICBCH. She's a founder of Hypnotic Women. Sorry, guys, but boy, do we ever have a dynamic place where we can go, women in hypnotherapy can go to find answers, to ask questions, to get support, to learn things. It's a great group. Um, and she created that in 2013. Kelley, how many members are there now?
We have over 4,000.
How about that? And we get along. We don't fight. Well, we have a couple of really good moderators too, I will say, because we are women after all. She has worked professionally in hypnosis for most of your life, all of your life. Were you a hypnotist before you learned hypnosis? Boy, I found
But
out.
probably,
Yeah. She is currently accepting one-to-one mentoring applicants, and I will put her website in the chat in just a moment. So Kelley is here to talk to us about anything she wants to talk about, because it'll be valuable. But she promised us relational hypnosis. What is relational hypnosis?
ah, when you originally invited me to appear here tonight, that was a while ago, and you had the topic in mind. And so I thought, okay, I like this relational hypnosis. That sounds good. And then in hindsight, I realized that a much better title would be It's All About the Relationships, because it is. And I can tell you right now, we all do relational hypnosis. And today, I'm going to break it down a little bit into how we do it and how we can be even more effective in helping our clients that are struggling with relationships. But what I'd like to do right now is to start with connecting all of us even more. It's been lovely sitting in and listening to you guys talk with each other and share ideas and upcoming events. And I imagine that you do this regularly so that you already have a bond. But let's strengthen that, shall we? I think that it's so important. And when we think about what ails many of our clients, especially ones that are feeling isolated, that are struggling with chronic issues, that maybe have loss in their life, is a feeling of disconnection. And that's been going on for some years. And, Michael, you were talking about artificial intelligence and the role that it's playing. I personally feel there's an IRL, in real life, renaissance happening. And I've been feeling that for some time. And I consider what we're doing here IRL. So I'm excited about how that's manifesting and embracing that myself. So one of the ways that I introduce clients to a remedy to that feeling of isolation is to tap into, of course, their own belief system, But you don't even have to really have a belief system to be able to do this. And it goes just like this. Just raise a hand. I'm going to put my right hand up. And I just point it up towards the ceiling. And you can extend it up as high as you want to. The higher that you go, the stronger this feeling will be. And allow yourself to start to become aware of that energetic flow. It's hovering right above us. You may even start feeling the tingling in your fingers, in your palm. You may feel a warmth. And this is something that's available to us all the time. It has many different names. You can think about what you might call it. It can be different for everybody. There's, again, no wrong name or right name to it. But I can tell you that if ever I'm feeling a lack of energy, if ever I'm feeling discouraged or disappointed, if I am feeling separated from people that I love, whether they're existing here on this plane or they've gone on to another one, this very simple thing will just unite me with them. And right now, I want you just to imagine those invisible threads of energy connecting all of us. I don't know. I think there's only a couple of people, maybe that one woman, I think, that was in Australia. So I don't know what all your locations are. I'm here in Northwest Washington, but it doesn't really matter. Because this is not only timeless, it's distanceless. And just imagine drawing on that. And we're sharing this energy right now during this hour. And that's a wonderful thing. Just feel that bond strengthening as we're here to commune and not only learn some things, but be reminded of things that you already know. Sometimes I'll go for a double dose. You're welcome to if you want to. That's right. Just bring your hands down and relax them. How does that feel to you? Feel free to just type feedback, or if you want to speak, you can. Is that something that any of you ever taps into? Sometimes we'll just do it, in our mind, but to actually have, it feels like community. It does, doesn't it? And you can imagine guiding a client in doing this if they're feeling that kind of a lack. And of course, they can choose, again, whatever they call that source or whatever it's connected to. Because it is all about the relationships and the ones that are there available to us. So we have lots of ways to connect with each other. Some of you may know my favorite way, which is through laughter. And I'm going to ask you to unmute your microphone if you want to participate in this, because I'm going to do just a little laughter yoga exercise. And some years ago, one of the books that I wrote was with Dave Berman, and it's called Laughter for the Health of It. And it talks about how unconditional laughter is so fantastic for us physically, emotionally, and it also bonds us beautifully. So this is a great group activity to do. You don't have to do a whole laughter yoga session. You can just pick one or two of the exercises and enjoy them. So I kind of put a spin on one, and I call it laugh and tap. And what we're going to do is we're going to just go through some of the energy meridian points from EFT. If you do any tapping, then they're familiar to you. But we're going to laugh as we do it. So just follow along with me. And don't hold back. Really, laugh from your diaphragm. Really let it go. This feels great to you. And notice how you feel right now. You probably feel pretty good. We just did that energy connection thing. But here we go. Ready? Ha, 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 ha. And then my favorite. Feel that? Feel your nervous system? Mine just really is awake in a good way. So sometimes I'll do that with kids, because some of you may know that I work a lot with children, and that's such a great to get some of that way to get some of the nervousness out of the way before we proceed into a session. So Karen had asked, what is relational hypnosis? Well, relational therapy is a frame in which healthy relationships are held as a core value. And so this leads us to think about core values. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had lots of clients that have no idea what their core values are. That's part of the problem. They may hold them, but they don't have clarity on them. And so maybe they're living out of alignment with them in ways that aren't congruent. So they're not moving in that value direction in life. So when we can create the idea and support the idea that healthy relationships is a core value that we all deserve. And then we can define what area in their life that relationship needs to be in. So we have a lot of, during that process, we'll have identifying their core values, but we'll also identify patterns with relationships that may be getting in the way. And some people have awareness of that. They'll come with their stories. They may even be reaching out for us because they finally want to change some patterns. Picking the same kind of partner, for example, is one of those. Or having the same kind of reactions in situations, whether it's at school or work or in a family setting. So this all kind of falls under that umbrella of relational hypnosis. And this can be about the relationships that we have with others, certainly, but I think on an even deeper level, it's the relationship that we have with ourselves. To me, that's very important. There are actually what I consider kind of three timeless levels of relationships. The first would be a little bit of what we got in touch with there, connecting to each other, but also to a source of that energy, whatever a person calls that. For someone who's religious, it might be God or some other name. For someone who's spiritual, it could be higher self, it could be a light even. It doesn't really matter. But we have a relationship with that, whether we're aware of it or not on some level. And this is an area that we can certainly be working with our clients in. And then, as I mentioned before, we have the relationship with self, and we have the relationship with others, which can be humans in your life. It can be animals. Probably some of you have pets that you're pretty close to. It can also be with those who are no longer here with us, those who have passed, or maybe even those that are yet to come. Who knows? So we know that healing and making changes, it's not just an inside job, although hypnosis certainly helps us go inside. That's one of the best things about it, is that when we work with a hypnosis client, we are helping them ease the distractions so that they can put aside those and really get in touch with what is meaningful for them. And so hopefully they get awareness, they get clarity, and they can also tap into resources.
Kelley, when might you decide to use relational hypnosis?
Well, I think I mentioned maybe a couple of the types of clients previously, ones that are maybe suffering from a sense of isolation. Maybe they have some depression. A lot of people have social anxiety, so they're not having the social interactions that they would necessarily want, so that they have that physical separation. Certainly people who are experiencing loss, grieving clients. And when we're talking about grief, it doesn't have to be recent. This could be something that has been going on for years. It could even be cumulative, which is having repeated losses, compounded grief in that way. We can it might be people who have other losses in life. Perhaps they've lost a relationship, or through divorce or separation, or are estranged from family members or even friends. It could be people who have lost a job, people who have retired. Empty nesters is a great one. I suspect that some of you have had clients who have had a real displacement once their kids go off to college or move out of the home otherwise. So people that have been disappointed in some way, people who struggle with their own self-regard, that relationship with themselves is lacking in some way. People who are having ongoing interpersonal conflicts, so they're struggling. And this is something that's pretty common. They want our help to not be so bothered by the behaviors or the attitudes of other family members or co-workers in these kind of situations where they feel like they're stuck in them, that they can't just move away from it. You know, if I'm in the grocery store line and there's somebody being really obnoxious to me, I can go into the other line, right? if I go to visit Michael Watson and he's being a real jerk, well, I can go over to the other end of the swimming pool. So I have some choice in that matter. But when we're living with people, when we're working with people, that becomes more challenging. And so this is where we can give perspectives and tools to our clients so that they can take back some agency. Because
May I ask about a specific that you mentioned? Everything you mentioned, boy, I saw hypnosis interacting there, self-help, all of that kind of stuff. It was the one that triggered me when you said a teen who doesn't have friends. That's kind of what I heard. Nobody likes me. People don't talk to me. How do I get people to talk to me? That's not necessarily just a mind game that they're playing. That's social interaction. Help me with some specifics on how to help that client.
Okay, that is it. And I think that one of the traps, and especially young people get into, is to create their identity based on what they believe other people think of them. And when we're working with teens, we really hear that a lot, that nobody likes me. And this may or may not be true. And so, another thing that we know about young people is that just because an adult tells them something doesn't mean that they're going to accept that. I work with some teens who have some degrees of body dysmorphia, and they have been told by everybody that you're just fine. In fact, you look wonderful. What are you worried about? And so these are all constructs of inner perspective. And this is an area where we can certainly make an impact. And I think that when we can get to that place where acceptance of self is really happening, and it doesn't have to be overall, it doesn't have to be complete and perfect, but if it can be in one area, that's a start. That begins things. And a few months ago, I was watching one of Chase Hughes' videos, and he gave a definition of confidence, because really when we're talking about the fear that someone would have in that kind of a situation, Karen, they're lacking confidence, and that's understandable. And Chase said that confidence isn't necessarily a trait, although some people might think it is, but it is the expectation of a positive outcome, or at least something that's manageable. And imagine helping your client tap into, activate, anchor, utilize that kind of expectation that they're going to be able to handle whatever it is that's coming down the line. They're going to be able to handle whatever they think those other kids are thinking or even doing. That's true confidence. I work with teen athletes, and they often struggle with that. They start self-doubting themselves. Imagine gymnasts, what kind of contortions they have to do, and some that would frankly be dangerous. And if that bug gets in their mind, then their relationship with themselves has really nothing to do with anyone else is being impacted. And to help them turn that around is a wonderful thing. And this is where parts work can play a great role. When we're talking about these intrapersonal relationships, the relationships with self, we have many ego states, don't we? And to make sure that those are working relationships. And again, they don't have to be perfect. We know that sometimes some parts are acting up, but introducing people to the idea that, in any moment, one part of you is leading. Now, right now, the hypnotherapist, coach parts of us are present. The learning parts of us are present. In me, the sharing part of me is present. But later on, when I settle for the night and I go and play with my cat, the kitty cat loving part of me will be present. And I developed a process for my clients in introducing them to their strengths, because many of us have learned parts work from the frame that some of these parts are not working properly. And we know they all have the best benefit for us, blah, blah, blah. But that's really where the focus is. And so I wanted a way to introduce parts in a more positive, solution-focused way. And so I came up with some archetypes. And I run that kind of process before I do any kind of parts work. And especially when we're working with a young person, when they come to me, not only does their parent have a list of what the problems is, the kid has heard it many times. And this has affected their relationship too. So for me to turn that around and inquire about their strengths, the parts of them that are successful, that are competent, that are effective, that are kind, that's really important. And then we can utilize those. And this will go a long way towards giving those parts more authority. And the part that might be afraid of how others are treating them can be reduced a bit, have not quite as much. Did I answer that question for you? Does that make sense? Okay, great. So I think it's really important to know if we're thinking in this way, and I have lots of themes when I'm working with clients. My primary theme is freedom, mainly because that's my primary value. I think we tend to project our things onto others, whether we know we're doing it or not. I want to help. In fact, I want to help my clients find freedom, and that was even a logo on my office door. Free yourself with hypnosis, and so it's very important that I and you know what the client's desire is. And here's a trap for us. We may have a client come who is in an abusive relationship. And we think, wow, I've got to help them get out of that. And yet that's not really what the client wants. Maybe yet, or maybe never. And so understanding and working really in that client-centered way, if we're considering relationships with others, and even with themselves, what it is that they want to help them formulate a priority, a clear outcome. And then that's going to guide us as to which kind of approach to use. And, I think so many times when we're talking about things like a poor self-regard, people don't get there all by themselves. It's their experiences that have largely created that, but they might be also operating under some misconceptions about themselves. Often, so much of what we think to be true about ourselves is really not true. And I question myself all the time in a healthy way. And I think that's a good thing to do. But I do know that most people desire a deeper, more authentic connection with themselves and with others. That's what they're craving. I think that's what the pandemic has made so clear, that without those kinds of connections, people falter. Anxiety levels have skyrocketed as a result of that. And helping them by modeling authentic and open communication while maintaining boundaries is really important. How many of you have had clients who start to become kind of needy? They are maybe texting you or calling on the weekends or panicking if they don't get an appointment with you. And I think that these are all things to really pay attention to and be able to manage. I've got some pretty firm boundaries. I think a lot of people perceive me as very kind, which I am. But, there's a thing that's gotten a lot of attention lately in the news, and that is empathy. And I even run into people that say, well, I'm an empath. And that means that they're highly sensitive to, other people's feelings. And there are a lot of people in our field that are very empathetic. It's not always the best way to use empathy, in my opinion. We can have pity for someone who's going through something difficult. And that means that we're imagining, we feel sorry for them, that they're experiencing whatever it is that they're experiencing. And then we can have empathy, which means that we are feeling that kind of pain that they're experiencing. And lastly, we can have compassion. And that's what I choose to feel for my clients. I have compassion for them, but I'm not taking on those emotions myself. And this is a position where I'm much more able to help them. So, whether that resonates with you guys or not, I think that when we can manage our own emotional terrain, then we're going to be able to be much more effective with our clients.
Help us with that a little bit, Kelley, because
Okay.
a lot of helpers, a lot of change workers and people who are in this business because they want to help people will carry that with them for a week or whatever. Give us some techniques or some ideas, some ways to shed the guilt, to shed whatever it is, so that they carry the responsibility and we let them keep it.
Yeah. So, in conversations in our hypnotic women group or even at conferences, this topic has come up. How do you shield yourself? How do you protect yourself from those heavy stories that you hear, so you're not distracted by them or weighed down by them? And for years, the answer I heard was, yeah, you do. You have a bubble of light around you or a shield and blah, blah, blah. And then Roger Moore gave such a beautiful answer one day to me. He said, that just doesn't feel right to me. I don't want to be blocked off from my clients. And he said, what I do is I let it flow through me. And I just love that. Just like water, flow through. And that way it doesn't stay in you. And it can move, it can go somewhere, but it doesn't have to belong to you too. So I use that if those kinds of feelings arise and I start to feel any of that, I just imagine that flowing through me. And it doesn't really disrupt me being present with the client either. So it's very simple, but it works. Now,
Plus, we can't want the change more than they do, can we?
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about, is we need to define what their goal is, what their desire is, right? And our job is to empower our clients, not to be doing all the lifting. Although sometimes I will tell some of my clients that just imagine I'm your Sherpa. I'm going to help carry some of the load as we climb this mountain together. But, empowering them by having them have the experience and doing what they need to be doing, whether we call it work or play. I like to make it be play. In fact, whenever I'm teaching self-hypnosis to a client and I want to make the case for them to use this, because we know the power of repetition, and also that when they're having an active role, it's going to be even more successful. I'll frame it as taking a recess. So, Michael Elmer and I, we created a program called Hope Coaching. And within that, we had a series of brief, self-directed exercises that clients could do that fall under a self-hypnosis umbrella. They were like 3 to 5 minute things. And you probably are familiar with the anchor collapse called the emotional detox. That's one of them. And so I would teach these to clients, I still do, as these mindful hypnosis tools that they can use. And I would suggest that you take just a recess. And they could be as brief as 1 minute. I have a 1 minute power minute where a person can recharge and reboot. And everybody can find 1 minute several times during the day. So definitely getting them on board. And it's our job to make the case for them to use these things. But when we're working with people who don't have to be connecting like we do, because this is our job, right? I think the idea of a protective bubble, a protective shield is perfectly fine. And how I'll do that is there's several steps to it. Usually they'll be telling me some, experience where they were having difficulty, where they were actually outsourcing their emotions. And that's when we're letting other people influence how we're going to be responding, where we're just reacting to the situation. And I think, especially for young people who are still learning emotional regulation, this happens. But boy, we know lots of older people that don't do very well in that area too. And so they will relay to me a situation where they lost control. Maybe it's the dad who lost his temper. Maybe it's, someone at work who couldn't handle one more customer. But whatever it is, I'll get the details of that. And then after establishing, a safe resource place for them, I'll have them imagine that protective bubble around them. And it's transparent or translucent. It's just floating, maybe a foot away from their body. They can breathe comfortably in it. It might be hard and rigid. It might be soft and supple. And then I talk about those outside influences, whether they come from people, sometimes they can be places. When we go to a certain place, any of those things that might activate that unwanted, unhelpful response in them. And then I explained that this bubble now acts like a shield and it's going to protect you. Those things are just going to bounce right off the outside of you. And as I'm describing this, I can see them actually feeling it. Sometimes they'll put their arms up and feel the parameters of it. And then I'll let them know there's another aspect to this, in that it works like one of those one-way mirrors, those two-way mirrors, where while those things can't come in and hijack their emotional states, they can send out anything they want to if they think that it would be helpful. And if we're working with adults, usually they have the emotional intelligence to know when patience would be a helpful thing, when humor would be helpful, or compassion, or maybe they'll choose not to send out anything at all. And that's always a good option too. So once we have this installed, then I will take them back into that previous situation. But this time they have their protective shield with them. And this time they can go through it. And my suggestions, my pattern as we're doing that, is for them to notice how, they can hear everything that's being said, but it's just not affecting them. They can see everything, doesn't bother them. And what this does, it gives them space and it gives them time so that they can choose how they're going to be responding instead. So we're changing this. I love false memories. Do you guys love false memories? We're so used to hearing about them being a negative thing, but I love positive false memories. And this is an example of how you can do it. And from there, once they felt that change, And one of the frames that I sometimes use a metaphor is that you're now able to pick the music that you're playing. No one else is pushing those jukebox buttons. And that's empowering to a person, for them to be able to finally, in one of those kinds of situations, be in control of themselves. And it can make all the difference. And we know that while we're changing ourselves, when we change, it changes other people's reactions, doesn't it? So then you can future pace with that protective bubble. But that simple tool is something that I have heard back, maybe from, someone who was a kid client of mine 15 years ago, and now they're an adult. And they'll tell me, I still use my protective bubble. So these are the things that can last because they work. So that is one way. I want to kind of get back to that relationship with self. It really starts, change starts with awareness, and that's why clients contact us. It also needs honesty, self-honesty. And we humans are so good at trying to fool ourselves, but at some level, we do know the truth. And encouraging that kind of honesty, sometimes I am really surprised at how brutally honest clients will be with me. And they will say, I've never said this out loud. And what an honor that is to be the witness to that. And it's also inspires me to pursue that for myself. I was a student of karate for 15 years. I got to 2nd degree black belt. Yay me. That was brutal. But I do remember one of the lectures my sensei gave was about being authentic no matter where you are. And he challenged us. He said that I want you to be the same person here in public that you are at home. And that really stuck with me. And I think that when we're pursuing being our authentic selves, that's a great thing to strive for. And I know that it's not always possible, but certainly it will make a big difference. And think of all the energy that people expand putting a mask on, trying to pretend to be something that they think that other people expect them to be. So when we're working with a client, we can help free them of that kind of expectation, whether it comes from someone else or from themselves. When some years ago, one of my first books that I wrote was called Secrets of the River, and it was written with Nathan Welsh, who's a child therapist in the UK. And it was a book on helping kids. And Nathan had this fantastic metaphor called the wardrobe of wonder, and the old-fashioned freestanding closet. And he would have kids open it up and delve in and get whatever thing they needed for whatever state they wanted to be in. It might be a hat of creativity. It might be a cloak of, super strength. It might be some boots for being physically active. You get the gist of this. And it wasn't limited to just clothing. It could be accessories or even tools. And so I've utilized that, but I add a thing before, and that is having the client look in a mirror and see what things they're carrying, they're wearing that just don't fit them anymore. Maybe they never did. Maybe they clash, they're the wrong color, or they're itchy, or they're just misfitting. Maybe someone else put them on them. And then I invite them to take them off and pass them back through the mirror to wherever they need to go. And then after that, they'll delve into the wardrobe of wonder. And that can be fantastic for changing self-perception and also for arming themselves when they're going to be around other people, when they're going to be engaging in those relationships.
Kelley, I just want to tell you, that's not just for kids. Well, except that I believe that we're all kids. I mean, all of our inner children show up for our sessions, right? But that really that had a great impact on me just right there. What instantly, I went to the memory of being a young girl on Christmas, usually in a pretty red dress with a really scratchy um, uh, what petticoat underneath it. It was the worst thing in the world. I hated getting dressed up on Christmas because of those. My mother put that on me. I didn't choose that. I would never wear that today. Boy, was that just an eye-opening moment right there for
Yes,
a way full-grown adult. So I'm just saying, let's not limit some of these things to just the kids in our office, because all the people in our office are kids. Thank you.
certainly. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your comments. And of course, that was a actual physical garment that your mother put on you. And
But that translated to all sorts of other non-physical things. Yeah, the metaphor
exactly,
works.
we
The metaphor
understand it.
works. Yes.
Yeah, the metaphorical power of that. And certainly I do use that with adults. And it's been fascinating and they love it. And again, everything that I do is designed pretty much so that a client can repeat it on their own. And once we give them imagery like that, a resource like that, they can choose every morning when they get dressed what they're going to put on, right? And, the power of choice is so immense, it's so unlimited. And I know, and you probably know too, that people feel out of control. They feel desperate. They feel despondent. They feel hopeless when they have forgotten that they have choice. And so anything that we can offer to them that is providing choices, whether it's what thing you're going to get out of that wardrobe or one of wonder, or how you're going to choose to respond in a situation, this is going to empower them. Now, sometimes we'll have people who just don't believe in themselves. They've lost all of that. Maybe they've gone through so many letdowns, disappointments, even abusive relationships that they're not only afraid to engage with others, but they are giving up on self-care. And I've run into these clients, and it's very challenging to get them to practice some of the things that we give them, and to get out of an entrenched negative inner dialogue. So one of the processes that I do is to have them imagine that induce a light trance, and eye closure is not necessary, but it makes it easier. So I'll have them imagine that they are holding a spotlight in their hand, and they turn the spotlight on and they point it towards one of the things in their life that demands attention. And then I'll suggest that, well, now there are more spotlights. There are multiple spotlights, because there are many areas of our life that needs our attention. And for people that have very busy lives, this can really resonate. They're juggling jobs and families and maybe health challenges. And then I'll have them one at a time turn off all of those spotlights until they get, and I'll make a click sound as those are turning off, until they have just one brilliant spotlight that is aimed right in front of them. And as they watch, someone walks into that spotlight, and that someone is them. So here they are, they're highlighting this version of themselves. And then you make suggestions that unconditional love and acceptance is flowing through that light. And that person that is them is receiving it. And just observe that, watch that. Look what that feels like for them just to receive that. It feels really good just to see yourself receiving that. And then the next step is to associate them into that light so that they can receive that. In effect, they're giving it to themselves. And this simple process, I call it Spotlight of Affection. If you guys want my script for it, I'll just email me, Kelley Woods at Hotmail, or through my website, and I'll be happy to send it on to you. But I've used that many times, and it really does improve that client's relationship with themselves, and improves their self-care. I've seen it in marked ways. They come back and report that they just feel so much better. And part of my post-hypnotic suggestion is that you will stand in that spotlight every morning as you're getting ready. You'll allow yourself just even a few moments of it to absorb that. Metaphors, I love metaphors. And sometimes people don't understand why someone can be so heartbroken when they lose a pet. But if you think about it, our pets give us that unconditional love. And they also need us to survive. And so for many of us, being needed is a core value. So that hits two really deep things. And when we lose a being that we have that kind of relationship, it can be devastating. I know some people who actually are closer with their pets than they are with any other humans. And
my husband comes close.
Does he? Is it an iguana? What kind of pet is it?
Go on, I'll show you.
Oh, yes.
How can you not?
How can you not? Adorable. A little fluff ball.
But it
Yes.
is true that some people get along better with their pets or love their pets more than anybody else. Why? That need relationship that you just talked about. Those are the core values.
But also the unconditional love. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you say or how you smell. That little love bug there will still come and wag their tail and snuggle with you, right?
That goes two ways, though. We give them that kind of unconditional love too. This guy, I don't know if you can notice his little tongue hanging out there. A couple of years ago, they pulled all of his teeth. He's got nothing to hold the tongue in his mouth anymore, so he just walks around with the tongue hanging out. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I love it.
I'm just saying, we give that same unconditional love back.
Yes, because you're a good pet owner.
Didn't mean to derail that, Kelley.
That's okay. Tamalinda asked if I would deliver both the Wardrobe of Wonder and the Spotlight of Affection in the same session. Sure, why not? I would even combine those. Once you've done the little mirror letting go of stuff, let that spotlight come in. You could combine those metaphors just beautifully. I try not to have too many processes in a session. I believe in simplicity, and especially, it's so easy for us as practitioners because we know so much to underestimate that a client might be overwhelmed just with one or two things that we're doing. Simply taking them to a safe place and anchoring that can be huge, right? Or doing a little bit of inner child work, even if we're not dealing with trauma, that can be huge. That can be, make such a incredible impact. Now, earlier, Michael was talking about romantic love, and I'm a big fan of it. I've enjoyed much of it in my life. Currently, I have a really ongoing relationship with myself, which is wonderful. But do you remember about 30 years ago, the book called The Celestine Prophecy? Did anybody read that? I think they made a movie out of it too. I didn't see it. The book was written by James Redfield, and it was a New Age book that came out with all kinds of big ideas. And the one thing that I remember from that book is the chapter on finding a soulmate, on that romantic love. And the protagonist goes to the top of the mountain and meets the wise seer there and asks about this big question: how do I find that person that's meant for me? And the answer is that we go through life thinking that we'll find our other half, but the reality is we must first be whole. And imagine two wholes coming together, two whole people, and what a better chance of success they have, how much more of a rewarding relationship they will have. So understanding that a person having that healthy relationship with that source, whatever they call it, a healthy relationship with themselves will pave the way to have that romantic relationship even better. And even if they're in the relationship already and they've come to you and they want help to improve it, maybe they've got some things going on that they want to change, that's fine. That's all part of the same path. But we know that we're not changing anyone else, that the client before us is the one that we are working with and that we are hoping to heal whatever they need to heal from or learn. And maybe we have some strategies on relationships from our own experience, or if you've been educated or knowledgeable about it. My son-in-law was so happy to tell me his new theory that he has that has really helped with my daughter and his relationship. And that is that rather than criticizing each other and saying that, well, you don't do this or that, they have together decided to focus on a goal, to unite as a team on a goal. So if it's cleaning the kitchen, instead of saying, well, you didn't empty the dishwasher again, it's like, I have this goal of keeping the kitchen streamlined in a process, and how can we do that? And I thought that was genius. So sometimes we can do some brainstorming with clients like that. And again, it's not so much bringing new information or tips to them, it's reminding them of what they already know. When we get that extra junk out of the way, then these gems start to float up. And you hear it all the time from clients. On the drive home from my session, it occurred to me that I can do this or that. And I even give post-hypnotic suggestions tonight as you sleep. In your subconscious mind, your creative mind will be coming up with a wonderful idea for you. Maybe it'll arrive in a dream or when you awaken or at some random moment. Won't that be wonderful? That will be proof that your subconscious mind is now working in a new direction. And this brings me to another important factor in my work. You all know what LOA stands for, right? Law of attraction. You're probably familiar with that. You probably even use it in your own life to manifest what you want or teach it to clients. Well, for me, LOA means law of attention, because that is very powerful. And when I think about selective attention, especially selective unconscious attention, and clients are coming and they are really struggling with things. They're trying to stop doing this or stop doing that, or they're feeling lonely or rejected. Well, they're kind of paying attention in the wrong way. And it's our job to help them retrain their subconscious mind. And really, that's what mental rehearsal and future pacing is about. We're creating that blueprint, that new map for the subconscious to follow, even for the body to follow. And one of the metaphors I use is after a session, I'll say, or during those last moments of suggestion, well, isn't it great? We've changed the GPS of your subconscious mind. And of course, this will start to give them the confidence when that algorithm of the mind kicks in and their subconscious mind starts feeding them solutions or even unconsciously guiding them so that they're not really hungry after 8 o'clock or whatever it is that they're focusing on. Then they get that confidence. That confidence grows, that change is happening.
There's one other sticky thing I want to ask about too, Kelley, and that is the lack of relationship, either through a loss or an estrangement. And for heaven's sake, in our country right now, there are lots of families, lots of people who are estranged in one way or another. How do you deal with that?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked about that. And I've been doing a lot of grief work, and my next book is on grief. And one of the concepts that I ran into is the idea of unending bonds. And in the frame of working with people who are grieving through, death of a loved one, this is the idea that the relationship doesn't die. The relationship is ongoing. And so we are free to continue that relationship however we want to. My father passed away a couple of years ago, and every time I go out, I have a wood stove at my house. Every time I go out and I run the little splitter to make kindling, I have a conversation with him. My relationship with my father has continued on and will continue on forever. And this can be an amazing thing to think of. So in that context of people who have died, or maybe people who we are estranged with that we don't know if we'll be able to reunite with them or not, this is a fantastic thing to do, to cultivate. And we can do that in hypnosis. We can help them have those conversations because we know that they can make that impact of feeling as if it's really happening. I once had a client who his father had left when she was young and came back into her life when she was an adult. And they were able to have several years really repaired that estrangement and had a great relationship until he fell ill and died. And she was grieving. It had been a year or two, but she was running up into this block of unresolved resentment that he had left. And so my approach was to take her to the multiverse, to an alternate universe where he never left her as a child. False memories, yes. And we went through her years growing up with her father present. And there were specific things that she picked that she was doing with him. And after the session, she looked at me and she said, I know that really didn't happen, but I feel completely different. That resentment was gone, erased. And so when we're thinking about the permanence, the continuity of relationships, if we so choose, we can certainly support those. And I think one of the problems, especially when there's a sudden unexpected loss, my daughter and her husband had a really difficult time. Many of you know that my 16-year-old grandson died by suicide during the pandemic. And they had a very difficult time imagining the future without him. The future that they had been thinking about for his whole life was now gone. And so their challenge was to create a new future, yet still maintain that relationship with him. And it can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done, especially with professional help guiding in that. And I think we're so lucky to work in hypnosis because the nonsensical, even the ludicrous, is welcome. We can get crazy. We can be silly. We can use creativity without bounds. And this is really what I love when I can help my client also tap into and cultivate their own creativity to think in these ways, because it changes how they feel, and it changes the relationship that they might have lost or they might be in danger of losing. And it can make all the difference. And there are many other, I know we're kind of running out of time here soon, but there are so many different approaches that we can use to not only strengthen those relationships through hypnosis, but to let go. And sometimes, relationships are complicated, but there might be some aspect of it that is unhealthy. And yet we want to keep the other parts of it. And I do versions of like cord cutting. I'll actually have a client define those connections. Some of them are colored ribbons, the delightful things that we share with that person, right? Or the good memories. Some of them might be ropes. Some might be more coarse. Some might be the chains that are from the past that are really holding them captive. And so then I let them choose which ones they want to release. And they can have that discretion. They can have that discernment. It's not up to me. So not only does it give them clarity that it's not just black or white, that this wasn't a totally unhealthy, toxic relationship, that, there might be some something meaningful in it, some redeeming thing that they want to retain. And of course, that is their choice.
And I've just got to step in at this point and say, Kelley, always leave him wanting more. And you did. You did. Because yes, always want more of Kelley Woods. If you want to get in touch with her, you can. KelleyTWoods@hotmail.com is the email. Her website is woodshypnosis.com. Woods, like out in the woods, woodshypnosis.com. And Kelley, this was lovely as I expected it to be. I just want a show of hands in the room. I promised you would feel better. Who does? That's right. And has some new techniques and new things to take in through this love month with you. Kelley, it was a love offering, and I appreciate you so, so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody who attended. It's been my pleasure.
What we would love to do is give you the send-off that you so richly deserve. But before I do that, I want everybody to unmute yourself for a moment. We're going to give her the big send-off. But I want to tell you, next month, we're going to feature our very own Michael Watson. He's going to be doing some instruction on NLP, doing a little bit of a deep dive into NLP with an NLP master. You know, he studied with Grinder and Bandler and Connie Ray Andreas, and oh my God, he's on the inside track. I just promised you're going to be here for it, right, Michael?
I think I'll do it.
Okay. All right. That's our offering next month. Now, please, let's give Kelley the send-off she deserves. Thank you so much. We love you, Kelley.
Amen. Thank you, Kelley.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much,
Lots
Kelley.
of love back to you.
Thank you so much. We'll chat soon.